The champ is here! And the Judgment Day has an up and down sort of day as the man comes back around, so just keep watching. Let's just keep it real, because when a goat is goating, you gotta start there, so let's just keep ruining wrestling, as John Cena told you exactly what he was going to do, and then he did it like the GOAT that he is. And he did not need to wrestle to win the title, as he delivered a low blow to a self-righteous Cody Rhodes and then took the title to smash him in the face to become a 17-time world champion. So John Cena is the ones, as he completely removed the pomp and circumstance with an all-black entrance with just his name showing up in white. Then he played mind games early to gain an upper hand by repeatedly leaving the ring before Rhodes could gain any real momentum. But when he got his advantage, he grinded the pace to a halt with simple but effective moves such as clotheslines and axe handles. But then he surprised everyone with a tornado DDT off of the middle rope, and that led him to a slow and deliberate but brilliant 5 moves of doom. That maybe were a bit too slow at times because Rhodes was able to counter some of that, but he was still able to give us that 5 knuckle shuffle, and eventually 4 separate attitude adjustments, and he also locked in our favorite submission, the STF, as Cena pulled Rhodes away from the ropes 2 times, but on the second one, Rhodes pushed Cena away and into the ref, smushing him into the turnbuckle and knocking him out. So Cena went for an AA, but it was countered by Rhodes straight into a crossroads. So the crowd counted to 10 because there was no ref to be had. But of course, you idiots counting doesn't mean a thing. So as Rhodes checked on the ref, Cena exposed the turnbuckle and then slammed Rhodes' head twice into it and followed that up with his 4th AA of the match. But with the ref woozy, he had a very slow count that allowed Rhodes to kick out. At that point, Travis Scott re-emerged for the first time since the Elimination Chamber and celebrated with Cena even though the match was not yet over, but that gave Rhodes the opportunity to land his 2nd crossroads of the match, but Scott pulled the ref out of the ring to stop the count, leading to Rhodes challenging Scott himself, who then obliged, only to get sent to the crossroads as well. But then Cena came back into the ring with the title, and Rhodes was able to grab the belt away from Cena when he swung it at him, but this was just the moment that Cena talked about on SmackDown, because he said there would be a moment where Rhodes would have the choice to do either what is right or to win, and Cena correctly knew that Rhodes would choose to do what was right, except doing what was right was actually wrong, because he did not take the shot when he had it, so Cena did instead with a low blow and a headshot to become a 17-time world champion. That makes him 1-0 in one-on-one matches and 3-1 in all matches since WrestleMania 40, and it also stops that terrible streak of 2,550 days without a one-on-one win, so the clock now resets to 0. But Cena will get a 1-week suspension for working with Scott here, but I don't think he's going to mind. So that leaves us with Cody Rhodes being the 2s, as he was simply off of his game tonight as Cena dismantled him, both physically and mentally. And I will have to give him some props for surviving 4 AAs. He just didn't have the mental fortitude to match the GOAT here. So in the end, he had just 8 defenses in his 378-day reign, which admittedly is much better than Roman Reigns, but still not good, as he was also pathetically limited to being 1-1 in one-on-one matches in 2025, but that still leaves him with a pretty incredible 13-1 one-on-one record since WrestleMania 40. But more importantly, it also leaves him without a title. Well, Cena's goal was to be the last world champion and to ruin wrestling, so for this very first match, the mission has been accomplished so far. And he didn't even need the help of the final boss to do it, though we certainly would have been pleased if he had been there to help out. So no, this was not a 5-star classic, but how do you punish the literal GOAT for doing exactly what he sought out to do, and all of you idiots are certainly crushed and complaining about what happened, and that is what makes this match okay. So with that, let's go to the top of the show and just keep soaring to new heights as Io Sky goes over the moon, salting not just to break up Bianca Belair's pin attempt following a KOD, but also to pin Bianca herself and retain the Women's World Championship. So Io is the ones that she refused to play third fiddle, immediately stepping between Rhea and Bianca, and she had so many highlight moves, so we'll just mention a few of them, with a double blockbuster and a double drop kick, as well as a trifecta of bullet trains, and she countered an avalanche riptide into a DDT, but here she struck at just the perfect time from the top rope, as she is indeed the genius of the sky. So this is her second title defense, even though that first one was just a double DQ, and she is 2-2-1 in singles action in 2025 and 11-6-1 in all singles matches since last WrestleMania. And so Rhea is the twos, but I guess her best moves came too early on with a prison trap on Io and then a riptide on Bianca. But it may have been her own strength that cost her here, because she first stopped Io's Poison Rana and then slammed her onto the top of the ring post, and followed that up by stopping Bianca's KOD by landing on her feet, only to get whipped with the braid and KOD'd after all. So Rhea drops to 2-2-1 in singles matches, but still 7-3-1 in singles matches since last WrestleMania. But that makes Bianca the threes, and she had an impressive trio of suplexes, including her marching version for an exclamation mark, and she also had a double suplex from the middle rope and a 450 splash. But she happened to be in the right place, but at the wrong time, after KODing Rhea, as Io just happened to crash from the sky to pin her. So she drops to 2-3 in singles matches in 25, and a surprising below 500 record at 10-11 in singles matches. But I have to say, this was while dominating the tag division for most of the year. I simply can't say enough about how good this match was, as all three women showed out, led by Io, finally making her opponents have to give her her proper respect for treating her like an afterthought all along, and for that, it gets a double okay. Next, we just keep going old school with tables and chairs as Drew McIntyre pushes Priest off the top rope, trying to go old school and into a pair of tables, and then claymored him into a chair that was set up in the turnbuckles to win the Sin City Street Fight. So McIntyre is the ones, and he had a near simultaneous attack with the opening bell, and with a bad camera angle, we're just gonna let this one go from any fines. But starting with that exact tenor, this one broke down immediately into a brawl as tables, chairs, and steps were prominently featured, as McIntyre quickly pummeled Priest with 4 steps shots, and he took a selfie sitting ringside, which immediately went viral, getting millions of views in just a few short minutes. But after taking a glancing blow with a chair thrown by Priest, McIntyre claymored Priest as well, and even though he didn't get the fall there, he landed 2 chair shots to follow that up and went for the kill by putting the chair around Priest's neck, only to have Priest stuff out a claymore with his own standard chokeslam. But he later stopped a South of Heaven chokeslam by gouging Priest's eyes and followed that up with a Future Shock DDT on top of some steel steps. And that led indeed to that brutal finish, so he gets a win, going to 4-3 in one-on-one matches and 15-8 in all one-on-one matches since last WrestleMania. But most importantly for him, he stopped a 5-match losing streak to Priest that started with last year's WrestleMania. But Priest is the twos, as his first chokeslam gave him some momentum as he followed that up with 3 chair shots of his own and razor's edged McIntyre through a table set up in the ring. But there was simply nothing he could do to stop McIntyre tonight, suffering his first loss since moving to SmackDown, as he's now 3-1 in one-on-one matches, and still impressive at 15-5 in all one-on-one matches since WrestleMania 40. There was certainly nothing fancy about this one. It was a brutal matchup befitting the Street Fight moniker, so it gets an okay. Next, we just keep doing your brother dirty, as Dirty Dom turns on Balor mid-match and then steals his pin after a coup de grace with a frog splash to become Intercontinental Champion. So Dom is the ones, as he landed 2 amigos on Penta early, and when Penta stopped the third one, Balor helped him out to finish it off. And this one was about Dom attacking Balor with a drop kick to set up a 619, which he failed when Balor caught him, so Balor started to stomp on him. But Dom just couldn't help himself by taking the shine off of Balor when he appeared to have the pin, so say it with me, if you give someone a chance that doesn't deserve it, they just might win. So he improves to 1-4 in singles matches and just 3-13 in all singles matches since WrestleMania 40, and he only got this chance after winning a tag match. So it is time to put out another petition to fire Adam Pearce. So Penta is the 2s, and it looked like he had this one a couple times with a Penta driver on Balor. That breaker happened to break up, and then a Mexican destroyer on Dom, where Dom was saved by Carlito, yanking Dom's legs out of the ring. So he has had no success in multi-person singles matches so far at 0-3, but he's still impressive at 6-4-1 in all singles matches. That means Breaker is the 3s, and he speared Dom very early in this match, and then Penta late in it, and he also had some impressive moves with a double German suplex, a double vertical suplex on both Judgment Day members, and it wouldn't be a great match if we also didn't see a Breakensteiner. And even at the end, he speared Carlito through the announce table, so he ends with 6 successful title defenses and goes to 4-2 in singles matches and 13-7 in singles matches since WrestleMania 40, but it's a tough one for him to lose that title with, as he was not the one who got pinned, but Finn Balor is the 4s, and he was the one to get pinned, but we'll give him some credit as he did indeed work with Dom throughout the match and did not attack him until after Dom was the one who turned on him. But once Dom started those attacks, he seemed to make the right move by pulling Dom's legs off of the top rope to stop a splash, and that led to Balor getting the advantage with a coup de grace on Breaker, but in the end, he was foiled by Dom, so he took the fall and drops to 0-5-1 in singles matches in 2025. And yeah, 1-13-1 in singles matches since last WrestleMania. Well, everyone went on a roller coaster ride with some ups and downs in this match, but we had just seen Io about an hour earlier do pretty much the same thing that Dom did by recovering on the top rope to then both break up a pin and land a finisher at the same time, which is pretty amazing how those things sometimes seem to happen, but I simply don't believe that Dom was paying attention to that match, since he was probably just eating some chicken tendies and nuzzling noses with Liv before the match. So I have to think that Dom just ended up getting lucky here, and that is enough to drop this to not okay. Next, we just keep asking who said that name as Randy Orton interrupts Joe Hendry's picture-perfect say his name pose and RKOs him out of nowhere to defeat his mystery opponent. So Randy Orton is the ones, and you have to say he did warn everyone of their fate if they accepted this challenge. So after a slightly slow start, he did play all of the hits with his power slam and vintage draping DDT. But it wasn't just that RKO out of nowhere to finish this one off, because after the match, he held up Hendry's arm in sportsmanship, but then stopped him from leaving the ring with another RKO for good measure, and that also will get him a good fine for that second one, but I don't think he's gonna mind too much about that, as he improves to 2-1 in one-on-one matches and 6-3-1 since last WrestleMania. So Joe Hendry is the 2s, and if there's one thing we can say about your TNA champion, is that he certainly can strike a mean pose. But as for matches, he's now 0-2 in main roster matches, but this was not much of a match, as Orton took care of business awfully quickly, but there was simply no way to stop him in his 20th WrestleMania, as he was landing that RKO out of nowhere. And maybe I'm just a little bit sentimental, but I will give this an okay. Next, we just keep clashing with Father Time as AJ Styles refuses to take advantage of Karrion Kross's assistance to use some brass knuckles, so he remained 2 steps too slow to get himself pulverized. So Logan Paul is the one as he made Styles look old and slow, as he was simply the superior athlete at this point, and he had several dazzling moves with a frog splash, an overbomb, a split leg drop, and the longest springboard moonsault of all time. And of course he took advantage of Styles' defiance as he avoided a phenomenal forearm and turned it into his titanium aided big right and the pulverizer, so he goes to 2-0 in one-on-one matches and 2-3 in all singles matches since last WrestleMania. So AJ Styles is the twos, and if I had to say it once, I'll say it over and over again, because it is time for AJ to retire, because he is no match for the much younger Paul at this point. And he did have a good veteran savvy moment by pulling the apron cover over Paul and landing several strikes on him to catch him off guard. And he was able to pull off a nice brain buster following a flurry of strikes, and even somehow managed to find something inside of him to land his own Styles Clash after he was embarrassed just seconds earlier when Paul hit one of his own. But it is just time to face facts that it is truly over for AJ Styles at this point, because he needed to use those brass knucks to stand a chance, and even with Karrion Kross stopping that idiot Jeff at ringside, Kross handed him a gift, but he simply wouldn't take it, so he drops to 2-1 in one-on-one matches this year, but his fountain of youth seems to have ended, as he's now 3-5 in one-on-one matches since last WrestleMania. I don't know, everything by Paul here sounds amazing, but when you're going up against an old, broken down man, it's not as impressive as it sounds, and not even Karrion Kross could save Styles today, so this gets a not okay. And lastly, we just keep thinking this was too convenient, as Becky Lynch replaces the injured Bayley and then scares Liv Morgan into a manhandle slam to immediately become a women's tag team champion with Lyra Valkyria. So Becky and Lyra are the ones, and you have to wonder what kind of chicanery is afoot here. Are Liv and Raquel going to get blamed for this attack too, only to have it end up being Lyra or the man herself? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But Becky didn't seem to have too much ring rust, as she landed a Bexploder and a Disarmor, winning it with the manhandle slam, though it would have been nice if we saw an awfully similar looking move in that main event that we talked about earlier. However, for today, Becky and Lyra go to 1-0 in all tags, though they did previously beat Tiffany Stratton and the long-lost Kiana James on NXT back in September of 2023 before Lyra defeated Becky for the women's NXT title. But speaking of Lyra, we need something creative here. We've already had Becky 2 belts, so let's not go with Lyra 2 belts. Let's go instead with 2 leather Lyra. But that makes Liv and Raquel the twos, as Liv was particularly shook when Becky's music hit, and while Liv was able to complete the 3 Amigos and later send Becky to Oblivion, she also missed the Oblivion on Lyra, so Becky came back to finish her off, and with exactly 0 title defenses, after having a significantly better effort against Bianca and Naomi to win those titles in February, these two go to 2-2 in traditional tags in 2025 and 3-2 in traditional tags since WrestleMania 40. While we're obviously very happy to see the man finally come back around, her presence really threw things out of whack here, and we gave Bayley's injury a double not okay yesterday, and we'd probably do the same for this match here, except this is the man we're talking about, so that bumps it up 1 notch to simply not okay. Welp, I guess wrestling is ruined, so we may as well just cancel Raw after Mania, right? Well, if you're still willing to come back, you better take the time to check out the grades from night 1 of WrestleMania right here, because if you do, just like getting a chance to see the wrestling GOAT in his last WrestleMania, this one was okay.